Now we're moving to week 2, which starts as usual with a program of classical era. This time we're going to have all Mozart program. All Mozart program. We don't do all Mozart program every summer, but every other summer, including his operas.
Mm-hmm.
And I am not ashamed to do that, because frankly there was no another Mozart in our universe, and never will be. Therefore his music should be played and should be heard, should be experienced. So this time we will present 3 works of Mozart. All of them have certain meaning to me and to the music festival. The first work is Serenade in C minor for winds, and the symphony is number 39 in E flat major. Both of those works related to one of the most celebrated board members of Peninsula Music Festival, who was Robert Marcellus, who was principal clarinetist of the Cleveland Orchestra under director of George Zell, who was conductor himself, who was my colleagues at Northwestern University School of Music and conductor of the student orchestra, who was the person who suggested to the dean to look for me as his replacement. And the reason why he was looking for replacement at the orchestra program was his diabetes. He was losing eyesight very, very quickly, and as much as he could still teach clarinet, and had no problem teaching clarinet even without seeing anybody, he could not be director of orchestra, and he suggested me for that position, and I was appointed. And immediately after that, he suggested my name to the board of directors of Peninsula Music Festival for the similar position of music director. So he played really humongous role in my professional life. Therefore, this program of works of Mozart is clearly dedicated to his memory. We are going to have again Orly Shaham as a soloist. So she is going to play C major concerto of Mozart, which I have not done in Door County for, and I don't know when was it done.
Yeah.
Many years ago.
She played the C minor concerto, K491, some years ago, and that's one thing that's great about Orly, is she's fantastic in Gershwin and plays the classical repertoire beautifully too. This is a lovely program, starting with the Serenade in C minor, and then the concerto in C major, and then ending with the symphony in E flat. We always talk about these key relationships, and this is as perfect a progression of key relationships as you could have on a program, I think.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yes. And you mentioned, of course, the sound of the clarinet. Well, Mozart managed to write some of the most amazing music for the clarinet fairly early on in its acceptance as a concert and solo instrument, and especially these late serenades. Well, for pieces that were supposedly composed to be background or occasional music, there's not a note that's not absolutely brilliant and full of meaning. So there's really nothing incidental about a piece like this 12th Serenade. And it ends, just to sort of put a strong point on that, with an amazing canon in the winds.
Well, that Serenade in a Mood is one of the darkest, actually.
Yes.
Darkest C minors, which remind me more of the Beethoven piano concerto.
Or the Masonic funeral music of Mozart.
Yeah,
that's right.
Anyway, so that Serenade has very prominent role of the principal oboe, who is going to be shining in this piece.
Yes.
I always see him and hear him when I put down a piece of music to be played. I see Eric Olson playing that beautiful, beautiful oboe. Because in this Serenade, the role of oboe is not only one of the wind instrument, but also as a leader. like a replacement of first violin. That's oboe, and so that's great.
And it's an insight also into some of the ways that Mozart had to work as a composer in Vienna. He would write incidental music when asked to do so. And this particular concerto, by Mozart gave him an opportunity to feature a new piano that he had acquired, a pedal piano. And this was a very clunky thing. His father reported that it took several strong men to move this apparatus that came under the pianoforte and worked sort of like a pedal board of an organ. And Mozart owned this and made a big point in advertising the first performance of this concerto that he would be improvising on this pedal piano. And of course we think of the slow movement, which is very famous from the movie Elvira Madigan, which the very, very big leaps, and how fascinating it would have been to see Mozart improvising at this pedal piano. And then of course the 39th Symphony, which is one of the last 3 symphonies that Mozart wrote. Supposedly, we're not exactly sure, but perhaps for use all together as part of a tour or a trio of symphonies.
I am convinced that he wrote 3 symphonies together as his final word in symphonic music, because they are so different.
Mm-hmm.
All first movements are different, orchestration is different, trios are different, last movements are different. So there are different sides of his genius in
Yes.
all of them. And the feature of this symphony is the wind trio of flute and 2 clarinets, which is really like trio of 3 equal instruments.
Yes.
And there are no oboes. So that is unusual symphony. There are lots of unusual features in that symphony, but we are not here to talk about technology. We want to talk about the meaning and the weight of this piece. It is absolutely divine. Sometimes it's called Schwanengesang in German, which means swan song.
Okay.
And it really addressed a second movement of this piece, the slow movement.
And you mentioned that we have done some of his operas in the past
Right.
few years. And although there's no vocal music
Mhm.
on this concert, there is vocal music on this concert when you think of some of the melodies involved with these
of
pieces.
course. Of course. I never characterized Mozart as anybody but a vocal composer.
Yes.
He was absolutely melodical and operatic.
And I don't think there's an instrument he wrote for in a more vocal way than the clarinet.
Oh yes. Of course, his clarinet concerto is
Yes.
another example, or clarinet quintet.
Yes.
Anyway, so this is something I'm really looking forward to, that concert, because it has so many ties to my past, and because it represents absolute glory of Mozart's music.
No question.